And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, March 19th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Chris Spags right there. We're brought to you by us, including the dance promo for Portfolio EV, which will end tonight at midnight. Get the Portfolio EV tool for 68% off. That's $32 for a month, basically $1 a day. We'll talk about it in a little bit. 11 games. We're stretched out all the way to 10 o'clock. We got massive late swap possibilities, 3 games locking at 10. I love this slate so much for DFS, but boy, oh boy, is there a lot of disgusting stuff we have to talk about. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. What's good, Spags?
I'm excited to be here. Excited to be back with you today. I feel like whenever I see you with DK on Tuesdays, my jealous envy strikes. But it's actually my son's 3rd birthday today. So shout out Luca. I'm sure he's watching this gambling stream while at his daycare before mom goes to pick him up. But also, Josh, very excited to debate Quinton Grimes with you today because sometimes some of us, I would call myself a Grimes connoisseur. I've been here on Monday. Josh, you were with me. You were saying Quinton Grimes has been pretty great. We were on the same page. Today, you're shitting on Grimes, the strategy show. You're angering the internet with your distaste for this man that's burst on the scene and people just didn't know was this good. And I'm mad at you for it. I'm really disgusted with your opinions and your takes.
I'm going to crush you for this one. Get ready for it, because if chat's agreeing with you, you should know immediately you're wrong.
That's a good point.
That would ruin me. That would ruin me. If I were in here and everybody, they were agreeing with me, I'd be like, holy shit, I'm on the wrong side of this one. Well, you'll be on the wrong side of it when we get there, I promise.
Okay. I can't wait. Can't wait to yell at each other like we're doing an ESPN show.
It's going to be so much fun. Let's get it started. These first 8 teams that we talk about today are more or less useless to this DFS slate. So here we go. Ooh, Eric, I jammed 35.5 under PRA on Grimes last night. It's 32.5 now. Just out of curiosity, before we get to Philly, Spags, what do you have Quinton Grimes PRA projected for? Just curious. Line is 32.5.
Well, here's the thing, Josh. I don't sell my data
for more than 32.5 points right now.
It's not over 32.5 points. I don't sell my data to the sports books, but I could probably save them a lot of money if they went to me and were like, hey, how do you make those projections, buddy? They're pretty great. I would have them for, drum roll, please, 30.7 real life points, 7.9 rebounds, and 6 assists, Josh. So he's way over that. Hammer the over. What are you doing? Are you kidding me?
I'm going to let you guys handle that one. There's not a word I could possibly say right now. Not a word I could say. The Dallas
Mavericks. You have
Mavericks.
a dollar sign on your hat, buddy.
You're going to have to break that one down and get a new one with the cent sign if you keep this up.
Look, Grimes has made me money this year, man. I'm team Grimes. If I lose money on Grimes today because he's not playing in his college alma mater city, more power to everybody else. But Grimes is a beast. I could do an hour on Grimes.
Dallas Mavericks, 11-point dogs in Indy, 234 total. Q-tag Brandon Williams, Q-tag Jaden Hardy, Q-tag Dwight Powell. These Q-tags matter. They only have 10 guys. We have no idea how many they'll end up with. I would expect Jaden Hardy to be ahead of Brandon Williams eventually. I don't know if that's now. He's been out for 7 games, so we don't really know. There is no ownership coming into Dallas. 3% to PJ Washington, 1% to Najee Marshall, nothing else. If everybody's in, I am not playing the Dallas Mavericks. But we might have 7 active bodies, and we don't know if the 8th one's fake. What do you see here for Dallas?
Right now, I don't see very much. I have these guys projected well enough. I got Najee at about 39. So Castle's got 38.2. So I'm not going too crazy there. I'm in line for the most part. These projections a little bit low on PJ Washington, I guess. Probably need to tweak that a little bit. But nobody here stands out meaningfully. Nobody above a 5x value. PJ to me looks like a little bit mispriced overall, but I think I can fix that. But really, there's a team like Josh mentioned. They are a team scrolling through. You're like, you don't see a single bit of ownership. You've got the most ownership going to PJ Washington at 3.3%. I got like 1 share of Najee Marshall. That's it. And that's on a 150 set at the sim. I just don't see how you play anything here based on the projections. But, going against Indiana, a team that can keep some high scores on both sides, maybe something hits, but I don't know how you're getting there projection-wise.
If Brandon Williams is out and Jaden Hardy is in, are you willing to play Jaden Hardy? He's 4,400 point guard, shooting guard eligible.
He's been good enough on the year. I got him at 0.92 fantasy points a minute today, accounting for the matchup and the total and who's available. He's been at 0.84 on the year. I mean, Hardy's a good shooter too for the most part, though I think he has stabilized a little bit there. Earlier in the year, he was closer to about a 60% true shooter. Now we're looking at about 55%, so closer to league average. I don't think Hardy's cheap enough at 4,400 to love. I think Brandon Williams, like you mentioned, has been the better fantasy player and probably the better real life player in a lot of respects as well so far. Hardy's a microwave, so like I don't want to throw him out the window, but like I don't think he becomes a great play. I think he becomes playable. I don't think he becomes a great play.
The only problem that I have in this scenario for Hardy, and not that it's a problem, but like we're talking about a guy that if he didn't sprain his ankle, he's probably been playing 30 minutes a night for like the past 2 weeks. Whatever, since whenever this started. He played 34 minutes opening night for Dallas this year, which I don't remember in any way. Like, if he's just okay and it's just a sprained ankle, like, I think he's live to play 28 minutes, depending on if Hardy or if Jones and Brandon Williams are out. I think he's interesting. I don't know what to do with it, but I think he's live to play 30 minutes today.
Okay. I mean, I think he's not a bad player. I mean, I could tell you earlier in the year, I was getting Quinton Grimes on Dallas sometimes, and there'd be a couple times where he in a game would like lose minutes to Jaden Hardy because Jaden Hardy would come off the bench and start knocking down shots and like unafraid to get usage up. So like, I'm not opposed to what you're saying conceptually of like what I know of Jaden Hardy. He's also a guy in the past, like going back to last year, if Luka and Kyrie are out, Jaden Hardy's rates will start to come up exponentially compared to some of the other guys out there. But you now have enough bodies in, like Clay gets too many shots up. Najee Marshall still getting more than enough usage. PJ Washington thinks like he's the star of the team. He's getting shots up. Dinwiddie less so, but night to night can get a little bit more. So I'm not sure it's like a perfect situation for him where it's like pure Lord of the Flies mode. But to me, he's the highest usage guy on the team. So like I can live with that as a concept.
I'm intrigued because if you give him 28 minutes, he's like a 6x guy at his current rates. So it's something I'm thinking about. But if they're all in, then I don't care.
Yeah.
Either way, not owned. And that's the takeaway here. Also not owned, the Indiana Pacers. 7% to Halliburton, 3% to Siakam, 4% to Miles Turner, and nothing else. However, we have a Q tag on Johnny Furphy, a Q tag on Tyrese Halliburton, a Q tag on Pascal Siakam, and a Q tag on Jarris Walker. What do you want to do if these guys are all in?
Not a whole lot here. I mean, I think this is one of the spots where Halliburton having a good game would not surprise me. You have a pretty good total at 122.5. You have the home game. You have a soft team on the other side. But really, like, I don't get Halliburton that much. We have all the other guys in. It's now a full strength rotation with a little bit of a price up for the fact that, you had everybody out last game. So I don't really see anything to go to here. And I guess we could save time with how many games we have. But the Halliburton, like, it's like a good spot conceptually for Halliburton, but projection doesn't do it.
No, I got like 5% of them on my run. But what do we do here if Halliburton and Siakam both don't play?
I mean, I think you're back to getting whatever's left at that point. Would say that the Siakam play would open up Obi Toppin again, with the price tag coming up a little bit there. And when you have Miles Turner in, you're not guaranteed the run out for Obi Toppin, where they could move that around a little bit more. I still would think that he gets the run out, but like, I don't know. Do you think that people would chase Obi Toppin a lot if you got Siakam out, given that he just put up like 60 fantasy points without Siakam, but in a different situation?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, 4,800 works for him. Call it a 1.05 guy. You get him to 29 fantasy points or somewhere in that neighborhood at 4,800, 6x salary. We don't have a ton of ridiculously good value plays today. As I look at it right now, who is the top value option on the day? Don't have it in front of me right now, unfortunately. But he'd be up there. Yeah, I'd expect him to get a decent chunk of ownership, as long as he got the start.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah, as long as he gets the start, I would agree with you. I worry about the minutes more when you have like one spot between a bunch of bigs, and like Tony Bradley, they don't seem to want to play, but like he looked pretty good the other night. He's frankly looked good whenever he's gotten minutes here, at least from a fantasy perspective, though to get some minutes over Bryant there between him being banged up and whatever. But I would just worry about it with how rotations go. Like if you got Siakam out, that Toppin wouldn't be locked into all the opportunity in the world, but I would take that shot. And if Halliburton were out, obviously you're looking at Nembhard again, who got himself kicked out last game, which is not my favorite thing in the world, is having some exposure to him, opened up McConnell a lot more. Both those guys would look better for sure if you get Halliburton out. Everybody overall gains a little bit. Getting both guys out, that would be the most fun outcome for sure.
Let's keep it moving to another game with no ownership. By the way, Philly OKC has 28% ownership. That's essentially all OKC. These first 4 games in the aggregate, 2%, 2%, 5%, 5%. Less than half of just Oklahoma City for the first 8 teams we're going to talk about. So we are going to move a little bit quicker here, I would imagine. Houston, 2.5-point favorites in Orlando, 209.5 total. Blech. 2 amazing defensive teams, slow-paced matchup, 93.5 possessions, the slowest on the slate by 2.5 possessions. 2% ownership to Tari Eason is the most on DraftKings. 7% to Tari Eason is the most on FanDuel. Are you playing anything from Houston? I got 1 share of Şengün.
I would normally get a little Şengün. I didn't hear Şengün the other night versus Philly. Really frustrating situation where he was in a good spot in terms of being able to dominate the glass and all that. But Philly went small, had no bigs left. They took Şengün off, and we're back to the hell that I know Josh mentioned a lot earlier in the year. Jabari Smith playing the 5, getting Şengün off the floor as a result. Of course, Şengün ends up making a play that pushes the game to overtime, just beasting on a rebound, beasting Brissett on a rebound to push it to overtime on the putback on a free throw, which you should never give up. But that's what Şengün can do. I like the concept of Şengün in this matchup because you're facing a lot of bigs from Orlando. But again, he's a guy where he's pretty expensive. The projection's not perfect. So like it's one of those plays where if you squint your eyes, I see the pathway to it being good, especially given the fact that he's better without Amin Thompson. But that total, the matchup, I think Şengün's on the floor a lot more, but it's not going to be as easy for him for sure.
No, I can't get to anything here. It's the matchup is not one I'm trying to attack. Nobody looks all that appealing. Steven Adams is like oddly sneaky as a $3,400 center, but like there's no chance I'm doing that in this spot. I have nothing else to add here for Houston. Again, and one thing I want to do say, I want to get this out of the way quickly for this show, because I'm talking about how like Dallas and Indy and Houston and Orlando and Detroit and Miami and New Orleans and Minnesota, like they're all not all that owned or interesting. That doesn't mean don't play those guys. Like, if you're a starter, you play 30 plus minutes, you're like appropriately priced, you're fine to be in a DFS lineup. You just don't need a lot of these like low ranked guys. Fred VanVleet's playing 35 minutes. Is it like a great play today? No. But if he's the guy that you take and put him into a GPP lineup instead of some aggressively chalky guy to get different, like that's fine. If you're going to get to Paolo Banchero at 5% ownership or Franz Wagner at 1%, they're not going to grade out as great plays relative to their salary, relative to the slate, but they're still functional. This is a good slate to pay attention to our boom percentages, because that's still just telling you, independent of the slate, like how good does this guy look? The optimal rate is telling you a little bit more about what we have going on. But if you've got a guy with a 24% boom like Paolo, that's just a guy that's a really good pivot to somebody that's getting some ownership. He's just not that interesting if you were like, I want to get 50%. It's overkill at that point. You don't need to be that aggressive. But I did want to just talk about that for a second, because we're going to be pretty pessimistic about like most of this slate.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, there's a difference between like when you're making content, I think people get a little bit confused by that sometimes, but it's like you're talking about the best plays in their face at the surface level. And then if for tournaments, I think we try to highlight them for the most part, but it's like you could absolutely see in some games like a play, like kind of be like, I could see something coming out here, but nobody's going to get it when they're running an optimizer or sim too much. And I think that's a good way to sum it up, is like, you can play fundamentally, you can play wherever you want, to quote the great Jordan Cooper, but in reality, you're not really playing a lot of these guys at volume. And if you are, you're probably making a mistake.
Yeah. So like for Orlando, we don't know the status officially of Cole Anthony. It doesn't seem like he's going to be playing. Corey Joseph will pick up those minutes. He sucks. 11% optimal, 5% ownership to Paolo, 6% optimal, 7% ownership to Wendell Carter Jr., no ownership to Franz. Like if you're playing somebody from Orlando, it's one of those 3 guys. Nobody grades out exceptionally, but I have 12% of Paolo, and I would take some unowned Franz, but he's just not going to look as good if you compare him 1-to-1 to everybody else in his range.
Yeah, I got 3% Paolo, so like I'm not there a bunch. Seems like a steep price tag for him, given that, at least to me, like Banchero and Wagner are projected pretty closely all year. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Like I think it's a competitive game. What?
Cole Anthony out just came in, so
perfect. All right. Well, yeah. So it gets a little bit better for Paolo and Franz Wagner as well. Look, I think this matchup to me should be a close game, going to be ugly, but you have kind of consolidated usage on both sides. So there's some sort of logic here. And there's been some former hosts here, Josh, that think if they were doing tournament grades, they would say these guys are playable, but not. not
they would all get an A if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
all of them. And we got the lineup. Joseph starting for Anthony, same starting lineup as the rest of it. But I mean, I'm not going to have much of Orlando, but I'm happy to get to one of their main dudes, whether it's Banchero, Franz, or Wendell Carter Jr. I just don't expect to have a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when we talk about OKC, it'll make a lot more sense why we can't talk about anybody else.
Yeah, they're like the ring and Lord of the Rings. There are precious. They have so many things you want here. Great total, missing 2 high usage guys. All these other teams that we've talked about so far are just like full go. Everybody's priced accordingly. It's not what DFS is for the most part.
Speaking of them, these teams that are wildly uninteresting today. Nobody on the injury report for the Detroit Pistons. 5-point favorites in Miami. 218 total. We're getting 10% ownership to Cade, and we're getting absolutely no ownership to anybody else from the Detroit Pistons. I think Cade looks good, should be owned around 10%, 25th coming out of the boom bust tool, 9,900, but about as bad of a matchup as you can get to. The double bigs for a bit of the game, 4.2 possessions below their average. This couldn't be much slower for Detroit. If I get any Cade, that's cool, but I don't see you getting to anything else from the Pistons on purpose.
Yeah, I'm getting Cade at 11, so I'm not getting an insignificant amount of Cade. The matchup here, tough on both sides. Both teams definitely not league average defense, a little bit better than that. Again, this game to me is it's kind of like Houston Orlando, where it's like this is like a good game on paper. They should be kind of feisty and going at each other. And Miami's also good enough to hang into games, seemingly not good enough to win them, which Detroit's racking up wins or trying to rack up wins right now. Cade, I like the price tag. There's a lot of guys today between 9K. 10K that you can get to as a pay up option. So I don't know that I want to really defend him more than others, but getting him at 11% is more than some. So that's really all I'm getting though on the Detroit side.
Yeah, I got a little bit. I only had 5% of Cade, but I don't have an aversion to him. If I had 24%, I'd be just as happy. This could change pretty easily as we get more of this information. But 1 share of Duren, 1 share of Asar Thompson. That's the real tricky spot today, because every one of these teams is probably going to have a Beasley, Schroeder, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart type guy do well. And there's 90 different guys that look like they're going to play 25 minutes with, guard forward eligibility. I love this slate so much. It's such shit and so awesome at the same time. Speaking of shit, Miami. Q-tag Andrew Wiggins, Q-tag Alec Burks. Call it 5% ownership to Hero, Bam, Wiggins, and Jaime Jaquez. I said it on Monday. It worked out. $4,100 small forward Jaime Jaquez is going to be interesting to me if Wiggins is out again. Seems like they're just going to be playing this guy about 30 minutes a night now. After that, I'm happy to have 5% of Hero or Bam.
Do we feel like Jaquez is locked into those minutes if Wiggins is in the games? Because Wiggins is out last game, right?
So I wouldn't say locked in, but he got 27 and 31 in the previous 2 games, one of which was when Wiggins, did he leave early or did they just cut everybody out in that one? It's not that it matters. He played 27 there. He played 31 the game before that when Wiggins actually got 37 minutes. So I'm not super worried about it, but anytime there's more bodies, it just gives you a little bit worse of a spot.
Yeah, no, that's basically how I view it, and that's what we talked about on Monday. And I actually did end up playing some Jaquez because Josh gave me the vote of confidence there, and he was coming up in my lineup. So I ended up having him 25%. Frankly, wish I had him in more. I kind of muted him down because I was like, I don't want to go nuts on Jaquez here because I still don't trust it. But I agree that sounds a little more stable. It sounds less like the Kyle Anderson chair pull, ha ha ha. Let's laugh at everybody bit that they do sometimes that Spoelstra likes to do. So I'm with you on Jaquez. I've got him in 5% of lineups here. It's not a lot, but I do have him as being a 6x value today. So not a ton of those across these other games. But yeah, I got more Wiggins, got 8% Wiggins, 5% Jaquez. Really wouldn't mind getting more Jaquez. Just given that context from Josh, I think people probably won't play him for the same reasons I wouldn't, where it's he's just that Miami rotational burn you very often.
It will indeed. Do you have anything else for Miami? Any Hero, any Bam? Is there anything else popping for you here?
No, I just got 2% Hero, 1.5% of Bam in my top 150 from the Stokastic sim I ran with my projections overlaid on it. So Bam looks not great to me. I'm at about 38.5. Hero, I have over 40. I don't know. Yeah, Bam out.
Halliburton out, Siakam in.
Okay. Oh, all right. So go back to Nemhard. Try that. If not, McConnell would be my first thought.
Yeah, I doubt he shows up much in that spot. I don't think he's going to be able to get enough of a bump on a day like today.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, game number 4. We'll keep it moving. Pelicans, T-Wolves. I didn't even change from Detroit to Miami. I just realized that now. My apologies, guys. Let's get to New Orleans. So the Pels, 13-point dogs in Minnesota, 228 total. We do have new injury news for the Pelicans, just in case their year hasn't been complete dog shit enough. Trey Murphy tore his labrum in his right shoulder. He's done for the year. So 4% ownership to Zion is the most of anybody on the DraftKings side. 8% to Jose Alvarado is the most of anybody on the FanDuel side. You getting anything here? Because I got to 4% of Zion and that's it. But increased minutes to Bruce Brown, not really doing anything for me. Increased minutes to Alvarado, not really doing anything for me. I'm nonplussed about the Pelicans.
I think nonplussed is a good adjective in general. I think I've not heard you say nonplussed very often in your content. So kudos to Josh.
I'm a wordsmith, brother.
I know you are, but the YouTube chat, they're like nonplussed. What are they talking about? Doing math?
They're like the Egans in Severance. I need to use monosyllabic words for them, something small so they understand it.
But very powerful and important, guys. So that's the trade-off you have. It's your own cult, like the Egans. For New Orleans, like I'm getting a little bit of Jordan Hawkins. He also is like a 6x value to me, but not a high enough projection at 20.5 fantasy points. Stokastic has him a little bit lower. I'm getting him at 1% of my lineups, I guess 1.5. Getting Alvarado at 3%, so not a big stand there. Getting Zion relative to the games we've had so far, a healthy 2x the field at 4%. He's your big winner, much like every sample size. Without Murray, without Ingram, without the newly injured, as Josh mentioned, Trey Murphy. He's been putting about 1.6 fantasy points per minute, so he's in a good range there. Tough match versus Minnesota, but Zion can do that. McCollum, I think, should be a little bit of a better play, but he seems to gain a lot usage-wise. Gets up to about 33% usage without the various Pelicans I just listed being available. But at 7K, I don't think he's a play for me either. So, and Zion's, I think, the most interesting play overall for that ceiling. He's one of those guys. There's so many guys at like 9K plus this week, or today rather, where it's like, I don't know what to do with all these guys besides get a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, if I get anybody, it's Zion. But again, add him to the list of guys that just don't grade out all that well today. Here's more. The Minnesota Timberwolves side of this one. 7% ownership to Ant on DraftKings. 7% ownership to Rudy Gobert on FanDuel. Those are the two high marks for Minnesota. I didn't get more than 5% of anybody here. I mean, these are just like random incremental lineups that show up for half of the guys that we've talked about so far. Do you have a priority coming from Minnesota? Because they are at full strength today.
No, not really. Ants, I think, is also, again, in that group. It's what the slate is. 9K-ish range, looking pretty good. Getting him at 5% compared to the field 7. So not a pro stand there, but definitely getting a little bit of a taste. DiVincenzo, to me, looks like an okay value, but not really a particularly great one. Again, Minnesota's a team, full health, fully kind of appropriately priced. DiVincenzo at 5,400, I think looks, good enough here. I would say for these guys, like I like the matchup. Obviously, going against New Orleans, not something you're afraid of. A little bit of a pace up for them. They're not enough of one where you really care that much about it. But, soft defense, and if they keep it competitive, I think can get there. But really hard to feel too strongly about any of these guys.
Yeah, I got to 5% of Gobert. That's the most of anybody. 3% of Edwards, Randall, Reed, and 4% of DiVincenzo. It's just like very little random bits of all of these guys. Here's the total ownership I have for the 4 road teams that we've talked about so far. 4, 1, 6, 8. It's like there's nothing. Yeah. Of all the road teams we've talked about so far, 19% ownership to me of 800.
It's crazy.
It's nuts.
It's like the size too. Like you usually get some parts of different games, but yeah.
I haven't even gotten to 100% total for all 8 teams. It's so bad. It's about to change, though. You ready to talk about the main event? We're about to do this.
I can't wait.
buckle up, everybody. Hit the like button if you're here. This one's going to be fun. But before we get to it, bang. Promo code DANCE. 68% off a Portfolio EV subscription for a month. It's normally $100. You get it for $32. It's basically $1 a day. If you're on sportsbooks or pick'em sites, you want to take advantage here. It's not just for college basketball bets. You've got everything coming up for all of the tournament. NBA bets. MLB is here. You'll be locked and loaded with some baseball bets. Hockey's around. I'm pretty sure people are doing quite well on hockey. Whatever you're looking for, we got it. Odds boost calculators. A brand new parlay builder feature has been released today. We've got a live odds screen. We've got some advanced data on the back end. You can shop around for the best line across different sports books and pick'em sites. It's amazing. Go check out Greg's Portfolio EV content. Check out Eric's, Nathan's, Lofty's. Check out Aton's. I'm probably missing 10 more people that I should be naming right now, but we're constantly putting out new content for Portfolio EV. We're constantly adding new features. It's getting better and better. And we have all the historical data to back it up. If you think I'm talking a bunch of smack, load up the historical data, build yourself a portfolio, see how all of our recommendations have done with those qualifications that you set. So promo code DANCE, link in the description. This ends tonight at midnight. And unfortunately, only Ben and I understand what that means. Inside jokes.
You were you guys on playback the other day? You and Ben together?
Everybody else in the company. Ooh, Brandon Williams out. Everybody else didn't understand. They thought it ended yesterday, except for me and Ben.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Is that it? Is that just going to be Brandon Williams and nobody else? I just assumed the rest of it was coming. I'm saying it right now, guys. Get ready for Jaden Hardy. All righty. The Philadelphia 76ers are 12-point underdogs in Oklahoma City, 227 total. We'll start with the Philly injury report. Adam Bona out, Drummond out, Paul George out, Maxey still out, Kelly Oubre doubtful, Lonnie Walker still out, Gershon Yabusele questionable. I'm going to start here. The current numbers for Quinton Grimes: 3% optimal, 17% chance of 53 fantasy points, 2% owned, ranks 65th in the boom bust tool. So for everybody that needed to jump in the comments of the strategy show to let me know that Grimes looks great, he's not chalk. No matter how much you guys want to say it, he will be essentially unowned. Same for the people on Twitter. He's not chalk. He's unowned. The floor is yours, Spags. Tell the people why they're going to lose their money tonight.
So Quentin Grimes, court time without the important high usage guys. Philadelphia not available today. We're keeping enough guys available because you don't need to take off Drummond. You don't need to take off the shittier Sixers, but you need to take off Maxey. You need to take off Paul George. You need to take off Embiid. And I think for me, you need to take off Oubre to get a full read of what Quentin Grimes has been doing. What he's been doing has, in fact, been putting up 36.4% usage, 22.5% assist rate, 1.5 fantasy points per minute. I know Josh pointed out in the strategy show, I think whatever sample size you pulled, he was at like 65% true shooting. He's at 62.5%, which is right in line with the 61 he's at the entire year anyway. So Grimes, the weird thing with the Houston game, he played at Houston. So like it was a homecoming. The Philadelphia announcers talked about it throughout the game. This game mattered to him a little bit. What matters to Quentin Grimes is getting paid. Restricted free agent right now, getting up every shot possible. The team is built around him. If you watch a Sixers game, and I will watch more because I play Quentin Grimes a lot. You just see him chasing after the ball over and over again. And if they don't give him the ball, he's like trying to get the ball every time. That's what the offense is. So look, can they hang in with OKC? They hung in with Houston. Obviously depleted OKC, maybe still better than Houston is overall. But I don't know. I feel like for Grimes, the rates support it. I'm not boosting his true shooting. I'm not giving him something unsustainable. I'm just giving him the usage, and then it kind of comes out how it will. The per 100 numbers. He's been a different guy. I think you're right, Josh, that Butler, if Grimes doesn't succeed, it's probably because Butler did a little bit better. Justin Edwards got some shots up, like the possessions flow away from him because the Thunder are going to cover him as hard as they possibly can. But he has been a revelation. He's been good. He's been efficient. He's taken more possessions than most players in the league. More than half the team's possessions between the usage rate and assist rate. So I think that's it. But, if he doesn't shoot well from three, if he doesn't grab some extra rebounds that last game, he certainly doesn't put up, 60 or 70 or whatever he put up.
I got 1%. I can't even believe I got that.
Well, You want to guess how much I got?
You should have 100 if you have them projected that way.
Well, no, because he won't be in all the Stokastic lineups. So like the way that the sim would work with like they're giving me.
You don't have enough pool because there's probably only 8 lineups out of 5,000 that exist.
Well, the field of lineups for Stokastic is at 1.7% ownership, and I will comfortably 30x that, it looks like right now, and get to about 38%. So look, it comes down to how do you want to gamble your money? How do you want to spend it on a given night? I will always say, please default to Stokastic. Please default to the company that's won so many people. You'd see the avatars every night winning all the money. That's what is out now.
Dude, Klay Thompson's out.
Oh, all right. Not Quinton Grimes.
Wasn't on the injury report, man. Kai Jones is in and Jaden Hardy is in. So they have 8 today.
Yeah, Hardy looking a lot better.
We don't really know how in Jaden Hardy or Kai Jones are. So
yeah, you called it. Hardy now got to be a much stronger, one of the better value plays, I would think, losing 2 high usage ball dominant guys.
If he starts.
Yeah.
If he doesn't start, then I don't know if he plays either.
So that's my take for Grimes. Look, I think that he has been a transcendent player lately. I think the underlying numbers support it. I think the rebounding maybe a little bit harder to get, but he's only averaging about 8 rebounds per 100 possessions. So the fact he put up like 13 the other day, it's probably not going to happen too often, but he should assist generally pretty well. So that's where I'm at today. There's a lot of stats to go around. And if they hang it versus OKC, which I don't know, Philly's a weird team, man. Philly's like trying harder, Josh, than they. I know Josh doesn't like watching the shitty teams, but like they're trying harder than they have at any point when they actually had the starters. Like it's insane to watch them versus Houston. And yeah,
of course they're trying harder.
Yeah, well,
why wouldn't they?
They're playing for actual money
for their lives. Yeah. These guys want to be in the NBA. Of course they're playing hard.
Yeah. But anyway, look, that's the numbers here. The chat making some fun of having 38%. That's what the sim gave me. I do massage stuff when I actually put my final lineups in. But that's just where my projection is. I have them projected today, as we talked about in the beginning of the show. I guess we didn't talk about the exact number. I am for 53.2 now. Stokastic is at 40.2. So I would say if we have a 13-point projection, split the difference. Give Grimes 46. See what he comes up as. I don't know. I'll lose my money.
53 fantasy points.
Yes.
Is that in metric or something?
I gave you the numbers. I gave you the PRAs, so it obviously masks out.
I think you probably put that in the wrong converter and converted it to like yen fantasy points. That's the only way that makes it. 50 what?
I got 53.2, 30.7 projected points, 7.9 rebounds, 6 assists, and then whatever stocks he'll get.
53 would be the 3rd highest fantasy projection of anybody on the slate other than Luka and Jokic, and that would be 5 points clear of Cade Cunningham.
I think I have him behind Towns.
A reference.
I think I have him behind Towns for what it's worth, but yeah, no, actually, no, he pulled ahead of Towns. I've got him by 0.3 on Towns. Big day for Grimes. Can't wait.
Holy shit. All right. Well, anyway, there's no ownership coming into Philly. Yabusele's status with the Q tag is at least a little interesting for like O'Shea Brissett or Alex Reese, but I am not anticipating getting to much of Philly. I actually think Jared Butler would be the guy I'm most interested in, unless you get Yabu out, at which point I'll grab a little bit of Brissett. But I don't want much of Philly. I don't think they look very good.
No, yeah, but Grimes aside, obviously, yeah.
He's going against OKC backups. Y'all act like he can't get them numbers. Yo, Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein are still currently in. That's not there. This is still a good defense against whatever the hell this Philadelphia 76ers team is. You ready to do OKC? This one's easy. Yes. This is the number 1 team of the day. They are 100% more owned than the second most owned team, 235% optimal, 300% boom. They rank 1st, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th in the boom bust tool. 35% ownership coming into Case and Wallace, who is questionable, by the way. 50% to Aaron Wiggins, 30 to Chet, 20 to Isaiah Joe, 20 to Isaiah Hartenstein, who is questionable, by the way. 40 to Kenrich Williams, 10 to Jalen Williams with a Y. You're playing a ton of OKC. If you're not, you are making a gigantic mistake. You might not like all of them, but if you don't like some of them, that's going to be wrong. I have a ton of these guys. I'm a bit over the field, 230% in total. The floor is yours, man. Talk about whatever you like the most for the Thunder.
I would say the guy, I mean, the field likes him the most too, but I do like Wiggins the most here. 54 per Aaron Wiggins, of course, 54% ownership for the field. I'm at about 75%. He's been the biggest rate winner overall from court time without Jalen Williams, without SGA, putting up 27% usage. Nobody on the team above 22.1%, and that's Chet Holmgren. Some of the smaller rates too, if you took Dort off the court, gets a little bit weird. Like Chet hasn't played very much, has played pretty awfully without SGA, without Dort, and without Jalen Williams. So I tried to keep the rates flat for the most part, but Wiggins I think stands out because he's going to get the minutes. He's a high usage guy when the key players are out. He's a good shooter overall, about 60% true shooting, a little bit rounded up there, but still like a very good player to me who I think is guaranteed the minutes. I worry about Holmgren and Hartenstein, and like this is not one of those things where I don't want to be like conspiratorialist person on social media or whatever, but it's like the Thunder, if they lose this game, they do ensure their own pick being better, right? Because the one the Sixers could lose is the Thunder's own pick. A little bit weird there, but the total doesn't say that. So I don't know, but it feels like Hartenstein and Holmgren, like they look like great plays to me. I'm getting Hartenstein at 29%. Holmgren I'm getting about 20%, so less in the field. But like I worry about that ownership a little bit because you could not play him. They have enough bigs to not play him.
I don't think OKC is going to screw around too much with it. Like if they're in, I think they're just playing it straight up. I don't think they're going to do anything weird. Now, like obviously, like Hartenstein and Case and Wallace might just be out, but I don't think they're going to have any like weird lineup fuckery during the game. That doesn't strike me as an OKC thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess it could happen.
It's just like it's the range of outcomes stuff, and I think that's in the range of outcomes when it is that direct where you can affect your opposing thing. But yeah, the Thunder, I agree, like are full go. Even when they, they're getting in trouble, getting fined for sitting all the starters versus Portland, like they won the game, right? And they went
disgusting.
Full go. Yeah.
What is the league even thinking going after OKC for this?
I don't know.
A game they won, like they're picking the wrong team by a mile. There's 15 worse offenders for this kind of stuff than the team that is the best record in basketball, sitting their guys once and still winning.
Yeah, and the bench guys were good, like played well, and like it's really stupid to me. But this, like that's the thing too, is like for this team, for the Thunder, if you kind of don't get why, I mean, obviously, if you don't get why like SGA and Jalen Williams being out would matter so much, and even Dort, like when you lose 3 of your highest usage guys, like that's everything in DFS. But it's also this total is still so high. The backups all shoot well. They were talking about a bunch of guys all above league average in true shooting. Besides, I guess, like Jalen Williams, I think is the only one under 55% true shooting. They're all good. So, like, I think Wiggins steps in immediately. I'm still getting Isaiah Joe. I know you talked about him, getting him at 23%, Fields at 21, getting Case and Wallace at 31, getting Kenrich Williams at 54. I feel the least good about Kenrich Williams, but he does contribute in every category, and it seems like he has to play high 20s minutes. But I don't know, man. You got to play like what? How many Thunder do you have to play in a given lineup? 3, 4,
2 to 3.
Yeah,
2.5 based on the optimal rate. The most I have of anybody is Kenrich at 50. I got 40 of Case and Wallace, 40 of Aaron Wiggins, 30 of Chet, 35 of Isaiah Joe, 20 of Isaiah Hartenstein, 10 of Jalen Williams.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah,
a lot
like, I don't have any specifics. I like it all. And if the Q tags break in a weird way, like we're going to probably get to, like, I really liked Dylan Jones earlier today. We have him down to 11 minutes now. I thought that he could have looked a little bit better. Oddly, I liked Colby Jones for Washington until Smart and Poole got ruled in. But like, we could see Dylan Jones be interesting. We could see Alex Dukas be interesting if Case and Wallace and Isaiah Hartenstein go away. Like, these guys might get 20 plus minutes. So either way, there are 8 guys on OKC today that are at least 10% owned. If you're not getting to 2 of them, you're probably making a mistake. They're just awesome. Someone's going to look good, but they're all great. Anything else for the Thunder?
No, I would say too for Hartenstein, I would just highlight he's been really good without the key guys there. I don't know if I'd buy it, but the assist rate's been up, his usage has been up, rebounds been even a bit more. Like there might be something to him being a real outlier play, but I'm getting him at 29%, so it's not like a huge stand. But I think he's worth similar amounts of ownership to Chet Holmgren personally.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. The only problem is he just doesn't have power forward, like
right.
He just loses that flexibility. Anyway, hit that like button, folks. We're going to keep it moving. Get to a couple spots that are a little bit less interesting, like the New York Knicks, 9-point favorites in San Antonio, 227 total, about 15% ownership coming into Mikal Bridges, about 10 for Josh Hart. Call it 5 and change-ish for OG Anunoby, Miles McBride, and Karl Anthony Towns. I'm guessing you're not getting to too much Towns if Quinton Grimes is projected ahead of him, but what do you like from the Knicks?
I still got more than enough Towns, getting him at 21% here. Some could say Grimes' upside allows you to get to more guys like Towns and feel good about that projection. But I like Towns here. I mean, the rates for him without Brunson about 1.6 fantasy points per minute. So in that range where, we're not quite in the Jokic range, but get closer to the Giannis range. So we can live with that as the upside. Even though Towns, I think whenever Josh Hart has his outlier days, you see Towns come down. Mitchell Robinson kind of limiting the minutes for Towns. He's not getting to those full, Tibbs injuring his knees and driving him to the ground levels anymore. But still should be efficient for San Antonio at this point, like Biyombo at center, like Mamu playing. I don't know what they're going to do there to try to stop Towns. So feel good about that. Getting Josh Hart as well, 25%, getting 20% Towns, 25% Hart. I feel pretty well covered on your two major Knicks outlier outcomes. Less of the other guys, I'm not with the Bridges stuff. I haven't gotten Bridges much at all this year, and it really hasn't ever made me feel bad about it. That's not going to change today, but Towns and Hart, I think, are good plays.
All righty. And just in case I didn't mention it, because I know that I didn't, Mitchell Robinson is questionable. Keep an eye on that one. Probably won't matter in any way if he's out. Andrew Wiggins is out, by the way.
Oh, okay. There. So Hawkes, no, yeah. That one concern gone.
Yeah, little interesting for Hawkes. San Antonio side, kind of just what we're used to now. The reduced minutes from Chris Paul, same sort of lineup. No real interesting stuff. It's the same 10 guys they've had for these past few. 9% ownership to Stephon Castle on DraftKings is the most for anyone across DK or FanDuel. I actually got to 12% of Castle and have about 5% of Vassell, Keldon, Sohan, and Champagny. Don't have much here, though. The San Antonio team is not very good right now.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you here, even with the Fox and Wemby numbers. These guys all become like about 0.9 to 1.1 fantasy points per minute. Nobody really being an outlier. The one guy who also is not in that range is Harrison Barnes, who I normally don't want to play either. So I'm getting about 5%, a little bit less than that, of Champagny, of Sohan, of Keldon Johnson, of Castle, and of Vassell. So getting these guys mixed into lineups for sure. Matchup's not bad on paper, but San Antonio is like a little too crowded. Nobody really consolidates usage meaningfully with the guys they don't have anymore. So there's just an outlier here unless they start to miss some guys.
Yeah, 12% of Castle, 5% of a couple of these guys, but no real major stands here. If I didn't say it before, I actually had a little over 10% of Josh Hart and about 15% of Mikal Bridges. So that is one spot where I haven't had a lot of opportunities to mention exposures outside of OKC. So I did want to get that one mentioned quickly. And let me just pull up San Antonio so people can see it quickly. Highest optimal rate, Stephon Castle at 6%. Everybody else is sub 4%. No one other than Castle is owned more than 4.5%. We continue on. The only other team that's actually interesting is the Washington Wizards, and they are way less interesting than they were before. I started today with Keyshawn George questionable, Poole doubtful, and Smart out. Now, Keyshawn George is out, Poole and Smart are playing. The exact opposite bullshit happened, which is really tough to see happen. No Koulibaly, no Keyshawn George, no Corey Kispert, no Chris Middleton, but we do have Jordan Poole. We do have Marcus Smart, and holy hell, this game is scary. 50% ownership to a $3,500 AJ Johnson. Makes some sense to me. I don't like him as much as I did earlier when Jordan Poole wasn't playing, but I don't expect to see a ton of Poole either. 30% ownership coming into Tristan Vucevic. That's a conversation point we could have. What are you doing with the Wiz?
I am getting a lot of Vucevic. I'm getting a lot of AJ Johnson, getting 70% of him, getting 47% of Tristan Vucevic. I have questions about both here. AJ Johnson, has not been a great producer on the year. 0.8 fantasy points a minute, does get some assists. Usage is not terrible at about 18%. But he's not like a lights out player, and he's been worse on the Wizards than he was playing whatever garbage time he did for the Bucks. So I'm not in love with AJ Johnson. I actually was going to go more Champagny's way on this team if I had Poole out, because I thought he looked like the best permanent producer in sort of a smaller sample size stuff. The Vucevic one, and Josh, I know you talked to the projection team daily, so they're assuming that Holmes just doesn't play today, right? Which I'm not sure why. Like, why is that?
He got the DMP last time out.
Okay, so that's the only reason. Okay.
If that's the case, and Tristan Vucevic is the straight backup center, he's a really good per minute guy. Mm-hmm. Like, if he does get 20 minutes, then at 3,800, he's a 7x value. Like, every bit of that is real to me. I have no problem with his rates, his projection. his optimal is boom. If you project Tristan Vucevic for 20 minutes, he is this play. I would push back on my confidence level in his playing time. There's nothing that says that Richaun Holmes can't play today. There's nothing that says that Tristan Vucevic has to get every one of those minutes. They can go to Anthony Gill at the center if they really wanted to. Tristan Vucevic could also play more than this. He's a guy that if you're using our sims, I would want to increase the variance on. That's a new feature that we have in our sim tools. This is a guy where I think that there is a lot of upside, but I think he's also very live to just not participate in this game, and it's Richaun Holmes. I don't know what that percentage is. It could be 5 at this point. Maybe they're just trying to get a look at more of the young guys and you don't want to play Richaun Holmes, which makes sense. But I am a little nervous about if he really just is the straight backup yet. I don't know for sure. No one does.
Yeah, and that's where I am with it. Like the rotations last game, going through popcorn machine, I was like, what happened here? Like Poole played, 10 minutes in that game, 12 minutes. Middleton played 12 minutes in that game. They didn't come back in. Sarr was playing okay. The game was competitive. He didn't get a fourth quarter stint. They started playing a bunch of guys, a lot of minutes in the second half. So bench guys. So I don't know. I think that I worry when I see a 40% number on Vucevic, but he's been great, like Josh mentioned, and he's been one of the guys I play when there is a center out. So if we're going to assume center's out, I'll get him. I just I don't want to put him in everything because if you were starting and like Holmes were out and Sarr were out, like Vucevic, every lineup would be like a must play. But yeah, with this, I just don't know. And Johnson, I really don't know.
If AJ Johnson starts, then I like him. I think they're just going to run him out there and he's going to soak up the time that they don't want to give to Jordan Poole today. That starting lineup will be interesting. I don't mind AJ Johnson at all if he's starting. If he's not starting, that's the spot where I start to get a little bit more nervous and I try to get off of him. We are expecting him to start, so take that for what it's worth.
He started last game too with Middleton playing, so the odds should be higher of him. And George played, I think, in that game too, right? So
yeah. Utah side of this one. Actually, did you like anything else from Washington?
No, it's honestly those two. I got a little bit of Sarr. It's just I don't trust the minutes. Like Sarr's rates with Poole out, with all the guys out. It's just some interesting stuff where he's been really efficient and some smaller sample sizes. But I don't know. I don't know that he gets enough minutes. Like he didn't close out last game, and he could have. And I don't know. It's hard to really rely on teams that are just kind of in no man's land in terms of what they're playing.
Utah changed up their current scenario, so this looked a little bit different earlier today. Walker Kessler's available. Lauri Markkanen's out. No KJ Martin, no Svi Mikhailiuk, no John Collins, no ownership. 2% to Collier, 2% to Kessler. Highest optimal rate we have is 3% to Kessler. I don't have anything here. I think this is one of the worst teams you can get to today, even in a matchup against the Wiz.
Yeah, same page as you. Just a weird mix of too many guys here. Markkanen being out with Kessler out, I think would open things up more. Kessler in, I think, is the best play here and getting at 5%. He, kind of consolidates the rebounding upside a little bit. But there's always a chance they can move away from in a given day. So not the most confident in that one either. But any center versus the Wiz, who's reasonably priced, I can take shots at. But 5% feels like enough.
I wish I had more to add, but I have literally nothing here. And we are at 552. Hit that like button, by the way, and have 4 games to go. But there's not a lot to say about some of these games. Like Denver, for instance, 2-point favorites in LA, 231 total. Q-tag Jokic, Q-tag Murray, Q-tag Christian Brown. I don't have any details for Denver. They got 50% of their minutes questionable, but 12-9 for Jokic. He's in 15% of my stuff. He's 10% owned. I'd like to have a bunch of them because late swaps are pretty easy with 4 10 o'clock games. But for right now, I have a little bit of Jokic, a little bit of Gordon. I don't have any lean on these Q tags, so I don't know what's going to be in, but this is going to be a spot made for the late swap tool.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Jokic, I'm getting actually about a third of lineups right now, being able to afford that. And I know the sim on Stokastic does generally seem to being able to pay up for these guys that people are a little bit uncomfortable paying for right now with Jokic's price tag at 12.9 today, not the full 13K, but close enough that people won't get there as much as they probably should. And Aaron Gordon, I think, is reasonable price tag. Obviously, we just saw him go nuts with Jokic out and Murray out last game. I expect him to hit those highs, but he's always been kind of playable when he's at this price tag, and that's the case again. If anybody's out, it'll look even better, obviously, for Gordon and whoever else is left.
Sorry, responding to Larry in chat, he asked about upping the variance. He said 1.1. Honestly, what I think I would do just as a test would be take 3 minutes off his projection and then double his variance and see what sort of impact that ends up being. Because like, I think the outcomes are pretty wide. Are you done with Denver? I was talking to Larry.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, just Gordon and Jokic for me, and yeah, the Lakers side we can get to.
Yeah, well, the Lakers side's easy. Q-tag trade Jameson shouldn't matter. 37% ownership to Luka Doncic, 12-5. I got 59%. He ranks 4th in the boom bust tool. Only Austin Reeves is getting any other love. He's 10%. I got 13. He's fine today, but I think Luka is the primary pay up option.
I'm getting Luka at 20%, so I'm under the Fields number here. So getting more Jokic, a little bit less Luka. I can live with that. This is my son Luka's birthday, so maybe I should try to get with the Field. I feel like that's probably some symbolism there. But yeah, I think Luka looks good. I don't think he looks, to me, quite as good as Jokic, but they were obviously very similar plays at their price tags.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to tell people whether you should play Luka Doncic or Nikola Jokic. Remember, 4 games locking it. Have enough spots, or at least you should. Do you want any Reeves or anything else here for the Lakers?
I got 7% Reeves, which is more than I was getting in earlier runs. I think he's been good enough. I think he certainly looks better in lineups without Luka if you're going to try to play it that way. Yeah, I think he's been great. I know that there's Lou Williams like shitting him on one of the FanDuel network shows. I was like, he's not as good as Norman Powell. It's like he's been much better than Norman Powell, I think, in most ways. And Norman Powell doesn't play defense either, so it doesn't really matter there. Yeah, I like Reeves conceptually, but at 9K, he's really asking a lot out of him.
The Chicago Bulls are 6-point dogs in Phoenix, 235 total. No ownership at all coming into the Chicago Bulls team. Josh Giddey is back. 5% ownership to Nikola Vucevic is the most of anybody on the Bulls. Giddey's at 11 on FanDuel. I think Vuce is at least a little sneaky as a center option, but I think 5% owned is right. And I got 5% of Giddey, 3% of Vuce. I don't want anything here for Chicago. These guys are expensive.
Yeah, I'm low on Vooch. I just think he hasn't been as good overall in the sample size without the actual point guards. When you lose to Sunmu and Lonzo and even Levine, like they just don't feed the ball to Vooch as much. He did get close the last game out. Josh pointed out like he was a decent play. I think he went 3 for 12 in that game, and if he just shot a little bit better,
bucket.
Yeah, he would be a little bit closer to where he would be normally. So it's probably starting to stabilize a little bit more, and the price tag for Vooch is low enough. But with Giddey back in, he does really dominate kind of everything, rebounds more, assists more. So I'm good getting 9% of him. Vooch is due to have a better day and kind of upset these smaller sample sizes for I think Kobe White and Giddey, but I don't know if it'll be today.
The opposite side, we are getting a little bit of love to Phoenix. It's 18% ownership to Devin Booker, 18% ownership to Kevin Durant, and 16 coming into Ryan Dunn. No Grayson Allen, no Bradley Beal, no Mason Plumlee. I'm actually getting a bit of Phoenix here because Chicago's awful as a pace-up spot against a bad defense. So I got 20% of Booker, 10% of Durant, and 30 of Ryan Dunn, which I really hope goes away. What are you doing?
I'm getting a good amount here too, more than I would have thought. Booker 21%, Durant at 12. Durant killed me the other night when he just didn't try versus Toronto. It was one of the worst Durant performances. I don't know what he was doing, but he just like wasn't out there doing anything useful. Getting Ryan Dunn at 15%. Gillespie started last game, only played a first quarter stint, didn't play in the second quarter, but he's been productive. And I know Josh and I made a joke about like, I don't play Gillespie. He ended up looking to me on the surface because he got that start like an interesting play, later in the slate. I didn't have any room to swap to him really. But I would take the shot. Like he's producing about 1.1 or 1 fantasy point per minute. I'd have him about 1.1 today. The issue is like if he's in that starting group, he's just going to get gobbled up by Durant and Booker, and the rates won't hold. But at a certain point, I don't know if he starts again. You take the shot as like a really cheap value on the slate where you'll probably find other cheap values.
Yeah, it's not going to be me today just because of that weird rotation. But if this were a different slate, he would be some sort of like wild card GPP play. But yeah, I'm happy to get to the 2 pay-ups, and I think I'll find better value than Ryan Dunn as we work our way through the rest of this. 2 to go. Not a lot of ownership to talk about. Memphis Grizzlies, a little tricky. It's a late swap spot potentially. Q-tag Scottie Pippen, Q-tag Santi Aldama. Grizzlies are 4.5-point favorites in Portland. It's basically like 5% ownership to Triple J and Scottie Pippen. It's 10 for Bane and Jackson on FanDuel. I got a little bit of Pippen, a little bit of Kennard, but we need to know the status of Pippen and Aldama because if Pippen's in, I think he's mildly interesting. And if Aldama's in, it makes it a little bit harder to get to everybody else for Memphis.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Jaren Jackson, I'm getting 4% of, so to be the one guy you didn't mention, I think you get a little bit of. Bane is also in that 9K morass of pay-up options, but if you get Pippen out, I think it's a little bit clear to maybe get to Bane, but you're still paying up all the way for him. Pippen himself, I'm getting a 13% fields at 9. If you're out, I would certainly get more Kennard. But really, not a spot I'm crazy about. Even if you get Pippen out, I think it looks a little bit better. But at this point, kind of priced for life without John Morant.
Yeah. It's just not much here, man. And nobody got to 10% optimal. That's usually a pretty good sign that like there's not much that looks great here. And that's where I think we're at. Now on the Portland side, Tumani Kamara is questionable for this one. So we need to keep an eye on that because he obviously plays a ton of minutes. Jeremy Grant still doubtful. No Jabari Walker, no Time Lord. 5% ownership coming into Kamara, 20 to Denny. He's been very popular as of late. And then 10% to Donovan Clingan, who, you know, could play 30 minutes, I guess. I'm actually a little over the field on Denny and Clingan. I like them both. But what are you doing with Portland?
A little bit under on Denny I was before the latest run here, but I think things moved around enough here that just at 13%, Denny, Fields at 19. I still think he's a good play generally whenever Grant's out. That's going to be the case again here, the price tag not being too crazy. Clingan, I think this spot, after he did kind of not get all the way there, is chalk. Duop Reith played pretty well. Feels like maybe a Clingan spot where you have enough bigs in there, you know, who aren't great, and Clingan maybe can get going when people aren't going to be there as much. But I only got 8% of him, so not a big stance. Portland looks okay. Obviously, you know, going against Memphis, you're getting some good pace. Total here for Portland, maybe not as good as it could be at 115.3, but not bad. I don't hate these guys really, but I really only getting Avdi and Clingan.
Okay. Final game, guys. Hit that like button. Live Before Lock is going to be coming up next. They're going to have a bunch of news to break down, all of our most updated projections. And then Greg and I for playback tonight. No porn edition, but all these late swaps, all of this ownership talk. It's a great day to be there for playback because we've got 3 games locking at 8 o'clock. That is going to be a major pivot point, and then we have to set ourselves up for those 10 o'clock games. We get to the final game. Cleveland Cavaliers, 5-point favorites in Sacramento, 236 total. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, they will be without Darius Garland today for rest. They are also without any interesting plays. 6% ownership to Donovan Mitchell on DraftKings, 5 to Evan Mobley, and 4 to Ty Jerome. I am not anticipating having much of this Cleveland Cavaliers team. 5% optimal. Evan Mobley is the highest ranked guy here. They're fine, but I don't expect them to go out there and play 36 minutes, and that's kind of a problem on an 11-game slate.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the issue with Cleveland, I think, for the most part. You know, Mitchell, I think tournament option, you could get it, but projection-wise, I'm only getting him at 4%. Mobley only getting at 3%. Ty Jerome getting at 9%, which I think makes sense given the fact you are vacating primary ball handler. But even that, the Jerome minutes could easily flow away with the matchup as well. You might need more defense. You can go to guys like Strus and Hunter a little bit more. So I'm not as confident in Jerome as I usually would be in kind of situations where one of the lead guards is out. But I think Jerome, if I had to pick a play, he'd probably be my favorite play.
All right. I got 4% of him. I got 9% of Mitchell. That was the most of anything here. And then we get to Sacramento. No Domantas Sabonis, which you would think would matter, but these guys are still priced out from him being out. Joe Val's still 7,400. He's uninteresting. Percent owner Artur Rosen on DraftKings is the most of anybody on the Kings. I have 1% at best of anyone. They look awful today. I want nothing to do with Sacramento.
I'm on the same page as you. Just not a great total for Sacramento. Tough defense. Getting LaRavia in 1% of lineups is like another value play that people won't go to as much. I have him as a 6x value, but he's not going to play enough minutes to really care about that. Yeah, it's not a great game to close out on. We had so much, but we needed to close out in OKC with all the energy that had.
If only. That'll do it, folks. Wild slate. Love it so much. This is perfect. I assumed DK would drop those 4 10 o'clock games, and they didn't. So we've got a hell of a slate. If you are a late swap person, you're in luck. This is a good slate for you. If you're not, you are behind the 8 ball today. It's a bad spot to be. Late swap is essential. Hit that like button, everybody. It helps us out a ton. Spags, tell the people where to find us or find you.
You can find Josh everywhere, but follow him at Josh Engleman. And playback, you can see him making love to Greg Ehrenberg in just a few short hours. You can also check me out at Chris Spags. Check out my YouTube channel at Splashplay NBA. Go live Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. Before this show, I always make sure to clear out to show proper respect to the greats that are on the show, even if I'm not on it. But do check me out there. And good luck, guys. Go Quinton Grimes. Go. Play him. Lock him. See how it goes.
If you like your money, don't listen to Spags today, everybody. Good luck. Live Before Lock is next.
What is happening, friends? And we got another pretty interesting NBA DFS slate. I know Josh closed out the deep dive by talking about how all of the late games are included on the DraftKings and the FanDuel slate. So we got all of them, all 11 games, and kind of surprised by that. They could have dropped the last 4 games, but they didn't. They're opening up some late swap opportunities for us, and they could be abundant tonight, Eric, because here's what we have going for us on the injury report today. Nikola Jokic, he is questionable once again today. Jamal Murray is questionable. Isaiah Hartenstein, he is questionable. We got Christian Brown. He's questionable. Tamani Kamara is questionable. Kaysen Wallace is questionable. That matters a lot more than it normally would when somebody like SGA is resting. Then, of course, Jalen Williams being out. Scottie Pippen Jr., he's questionable. Santi Aldama is questionable. So you guys are going to want to be tuned in for the next hour. Well, even more than the next hour with Eric and myself, and then the following hour with Josh and myself over on Playback, where literally anything could happen. You never know. So do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Eric, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very lovely. Put together it was a long, arduous process to go through all 11 games here today, but broke it down from a DFS angle, from a betting angle. Feel as prepared as you can for this slate. I don't feel good about this slate, which is kind of weird. Normally it's like, oh, we get on and we're just enthusiastic and ready to rock. Denver is such a pain in the ass today, and I have no idea what to make of it. And it's going to make or break so many parts of this slate, because either I want to get to Jokic, but then you have to have late exposure to move around the salary, and you've got to have the lineup spots. But then, obviously Russell Westbrook back in LA, if you get all those guys out. And then what even happens if it's going to be Jokic and Westbrook on the floor together? Because it's just you just need Murray out, I suppose. And, Gordon, we saw he's got that dog in him, 30 plus over in Golden State. Michael Porter Jr. looks great. I mean, that team specifically is giving me such a headache. And then Memphis isn't exactly the best friends of us either here, because if you get Scottie Pippen out again, I think Luke Kennard's interesting. Yet again, only played 28, 29 minutes. They've been kind of muting them a little bit more. Desmond Bain can play some backup point guard. They can get to some other pieces, but there's just some weird stuff. Not that he's the highest upside. I guess that's tick for tack. Is I absolutely just think Denver is way, 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 way more important, as does everybody else. But hopefully we get that news before Washington, Utah. I doubt we get it before this OKC game that matters so much. But how do you feel about this slate? Because I don't feel great about it.
I'm ready to late swap. I usually default to just saying if Jokic is questionable that he's going to play, but we saw the situation the other day and he ended up sitting. And then it's also weird because, like we said the other day, he's been listed as questionable with this injury for, 2-3 weeks. Every single game he's been playing through it. He typically insists on playing, but they ended up holding him out. So forced to guess, I'm going to say most likely I think he plays again, but I can't say that with a great deal of confidence after he sat out last game.
It's so hard to know exactly what we're going to do here. It is very, very hard. I just don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of any of that news. And, obviously I try to use the betting markets to indicate kind of where I should feel about certain things. There's only one place on planet Earth that has Russell Westbrook anywhere. It's 20.5 PRA over at DK Pick 6. Not even available at the Sportsbook. 6. They threw out his PRA there, and I'm just man, that's going to go up 50% more. Maybe 65% more. I mean, it's just hard to contemplate exactly how good or how bad Denver is going to look. Jokic is going to look incredible no matter what, because we have value. We have things we can get to already. And if he doesn't play, what the hell do you do? Because he's the best play on the slate at 10% if he's playing basketball tonight against the Lakers and Jackson Hayes. So is what it is. Have fun. Here we go.
Yeah, and we'll be breaking down the news as it comes. And I'm sure there's going to be unforeseen shit that ends up happening as well, because it's the name of the game. That's how it ends up working around here. Also want to let you guys know that if you are looking to sign up for Portfolio EV, today is the final day, the absolute final day of the dance sale. So if you sign up at Portfolio EV, we got a link down below in the YouTube description box. If you sign up with the promo code DANCE, DANCE, all capital letters, you're going to get 68% off your first month. That deal is going to be expiring tonight. So take advantage or forever hold your peace. Eric, let's start to look at the slate as a whole, because believe it or not, we have not had any breaking news in between the deep dive and live before lock. First time that's happened probably in weeks. So what I want to do is just look at, to start, the most popular overall projected players on the slate. We'll look at the ownership in both DraftKings and FanDuel and just get an early reaction to, based on what we know right now, who are the players that we think are good chalk, and if there's anybody we could identify as being potentially bad chalk, like you did with Mark Williams yesterday. The chalk today that we have at the top of the board, Aaron Wiggins pulling just over 50% ownership. He is the most popular player on the slate. AJ Johnson is 46% owned, and just under 40% owned is Luka Doncic. Cason Wallace, who is questionable, is 33.5% owned. Kenrich Williams, 33% owned. We got Chet Holmgren, 32% owned. Tristan Vukcevic, he is 31% owned. And then just under 30% owned is Jaden Hardy. Those are your most popular players as of right now on tonight's slate. Given those players, Eric, I want to know, who is it that's a chalk option that you think you just aren't going to be able to get away from?
Not going to be able to get away from Jaden Hardy in any way, shape, or form. He's too cheap, 4,400 for 8 dudes being active. And you look at these guard minutes, no Klay Thompson came from absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
Like absolutely nowhere. And that's usage that's going to kind of get spawned across the board. And Spencer Dinwiddie, Max Christie get the majority of it. Jaden Hardy, I don't know what to make of the minutes, but I know that there's 8 guys, and I doubt that they would, just kind of set this up to be. Otherwise, you would just think, like, if Jaden Hardy can't play that much, you should just play a ton of Dinwiddie, a ton of Max Christie, and I don't think that's the optimal route to go. I think even just coming off the bench, Jaden Hardy's our dude. So 80% optimal rate is pretty insane looking at our tools right now, but only 42% ownership. I've got him in just about everything.
Yeah, and I see people in chat bringing up, well, what happens if he doesn't start? For reference, we are currently not projecting him to start, and he still looks really good. So the expectation, as of right now, is that he's one of the top plays on the slate, despite not starting. Here's what we have for the starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks as of right now, who, keep in mind, only have 8 players who are active as of right now, and from what we've heard, there's a pretty good chance that a couple weeks from now, they're going to have to start forfeiting games because they might not be able to field an entire roster of lineups. I tend to think that won't happen, and the NBA will grant them some sort of exemption if it actually comes to that, but who knows? Projected starting lineup that we have for Dallas: Spencer Dinwiddie, Max Christie, Najee Marshall, Kessler Edwards, PJ Washington. If Jaden Hardy starts, he would look even better. If he comes off the bench, that's what I'm expecting now anyway. Is that the same for you, Eric?
Yes. It's just... he's just insane still. You look at his rates with everybody gone. Back in the day, we were just jamming Jaden Hardy even at like 5-6K at the end of seasons when it was that tough Kyrie and Luka, when they went and got Kyrie, and then it just didn't work out that first half of them hanging out, or I guess it's just second half of the season after the deadline. But it ended up just being Jaden Hardy every single day. This year, it's been up and down because we've had other pieces, specifically Brandon Williams has been somebody who's shown out. Dante Exum at times has been there. Is not there anymore. Either of those two, or Kyrie, or Luka. So Jaden Hardy just looks insane to me. You go back to like 2 years ago rates and he'd break everything, but he's still an insanely good play as it is right now. Definitely my favorite of the chalk options. I'm not saying that Aaron Wiggins isn't an awesome play at 50% ownership. He's still somebody who's going to be in a ton of my lineups. AJ Johnson, I'm not going to call him necessary. I think he's probably the guy that I'm the least bullish on out of this entire crew of guys, but I don't think Jaden Hardy ends up being popular. I don't think that he starts like popular as he should be is the right way of saying it. I think he should be, in that 50-55% realm. And I think there's enough uncertainty that people aren't going to click the button. I'll click the button.
Yeah, we're seeing people in chat saying they don't even think Hardy's going to be in the rotation today, which I don't even know how that's possible. Because you look at, here are the available point guards that they have. Spencer Dinwiddie, Jaden Hardy, end of list. That's it. The entire list of active players Dallas has today: Hardy, Dinwiddie, Christie, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, Kessler Edwards, Dwight Powell, who's been on a minutes restriction, Kai Jones. So even of the available players they have today, Dwight Powell, center, Kai Jones, center, Kessler Edwards, also a center. PJ Washington ideally should be playing center. They have 8 active guys. 4 of them are actually centers as their best position. So I don't know how they would run the rotation to the people in chat who are saying they don't think Hardy is going to play today. I just don't know how he would be a DNP coach's decision.
If you're not going to play Hardy, you have to not just play Spencer Dinwiddie, but you have to play Max Christie too. Like, you're just playing both of them because you're basically telling us right now by saying that he's not going to play, that those two are going to play 48 minutes. Like, that's what you're saying, because there's no other option. What's the point? Najee Marshall, I guess, is the other option, which we saw in New Orleans for just to be completely fair. Najee Marshall has played point guard, or like whatever version of point guard you want to call it. You have PJ Washington who can handle the ball somewhat, but like Spencer Dinwiddie and Max Christie are your only other guards. Kai Jones and Dwight Powell, they're not going out there for ball handling duty. So again, I just come back to it. Jaden Hardy is an absolute smash.
Yeah, I have him in half of my lineups right now, and I wouldn't be surprised that ends up going up as we get closer to lock as well, because we have upped our projection on him since I last ran the sim. So rerunning everything shortly here, because we did have a projection update about 10 minutes ago, which was after the show started, and you see that we now have Jaden Hardy projected for north of 30 fantasy points. He's a competent fantasy producer. He's not like a world beater or anything like that, but right around a fantasy point per minute for a team that's really shorthanded. I mean, if you assume that Jaden Hardy plays at a minimum mid-20s minutes, then you're looking at a fantasy point projection of also mid-20s. So even if you wanted to be a little bit lighter on his minutes here and say, hey, I think he plays 26 minutes, you'd still be looking at about 26 fantasy points at $4,400. He'd be grading out pretty well. Spencer Dinwiddie, we've got him in here for 32 fantasy points, 28 to Christie, 38.5 for PJ Washington. Najee Marshall remains really expensive at 37.7, but nobody massively popular from Dallas. Well, we do have ownership going to Hardy. It's 29%. It's not like he's 50% owned or anything like that. With the Mavericks being as shorthanded as they are outside of Jaden Hardy, is there anybody you could see yourself making an important player in your lineups?
The nuke of the night. The nuke of the night. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So that's what we have here for the Dallas Mavericks and the Jaden Hardy situation. And also want to ask you once again, because I don't think we touched on this part here, but are there any players that are pulling a bunch of ownership that you are viewing as over-owned at the moment? No is an acceptable answer, by the way. If you think that this is reasonable for all these guys, that's not an incorrect answer. You don't have to be forced to tell people that somebody's a bad option if you don't think so.
No, I just wanted to take a second to, so one of the things that I probably don't do enough in my entire life is just take a second, think about it, then respond, just so that I get my point across. Like, I think sometimes I just, try to fill the void, or, I can't deal with silence. That's always been something in all my relationships in life. Good thing, my wife just sent me out here to the tiny house. I just kind of live my days out here in solace and fortitude. But anyway, the main thing for me is Kenrich Williams. Like, OKC, there's a lot of ways where Kenrich Williams is unavoidable. If you get Isaiah Hartenstein sitting, yeah, it's an issue. But I assume Kenrich Williams is starting too. Like, it's just that I think if you have Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein out there, what's Kenrich Williams rebounding going to look like? Like, what do the minutes look like when, you don't have Chet playing the 5 or Jalen Williams with a Y, that is Jalen Williams playing the 5. Like, I'm just very curious to see what happens with Kenrich Williams ownership based on that news. Cause like, he's going to get jammed if you get, if you end up getting Isaiah Hartenstein in, and then you add another chalk option right behind him. I think Jalen Williams becomes one of the best tournament plays on the entire slate at 4,600 at center. He had a triple-double in this kind of same situation last time. I don't expect 54 fantasy points in that, but he played 36 minutes against Portland. He played blowout run too. Like, that's the nice thing about some of these OKC pieces, these ancillary pieces, is that there's not like blowout concern, because what do? Go to who's the next guy that they're really going to roll out there that they're that worried about? And I think that that's what makes Kenrich Williams, like, well, he's my least favorite of these chalk options, I still think that he's a very good play. So that's what I was trying to express by explaining it and taking a second.
Yeah, and we still have other guys questionable for this team as well. Isaiah Hartenstein questionable, Cason Wallace questionable. We'll talk about what the implications could be if those guys are out when you consider Lou Dort's already out. EJ Mitchell's already out, which normally wouldn't matter at all, but it definitely matters when they're as shorthanded as they are today. And then you get other guys too, like Jalen Williams being out. Ousmane Dieng is out. He was an important piece the last time that we saw the Thunder really shorthanded. SGA, of course, him being out, that is most impactful for the usage overall on this team. So here's who we have in the rotation for today. We've got, as guys that we know for sure are in, Chet, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Jalen Williams with a Y, Kenrich Williams, Alex Caruso, Dylan Jones, Alex Dukas, Adam Flagler. And then when you consider that Hartenstein and Cason Wallace are both questionable, this has potential to be a 9-man rotation for OKC. So as far as the current ownership, this team is already very, very popular. Very, very popular. This team is pulling more ownership than any other team on the slate, went over the most popular players before. But then even outside of the chalkiest guys, 20.5% ownership to Isaiah Joe, Hartenstein 14.5% owned, Jalen Williams 13.2% owned. Now, Jalen Williams, if Hartenstein is out, well, then you're looking at a very chalky piece. He's not 13% owned anymore. If Cason Wallace is out, I think the Hartenstein one's pretty easy to break down, right, Eric? If Hartenstein's out, you're playing Jalen Williams. Is there anything else you would add to that?
No.
Okay. The Cason Wallace part is interesting to me because they have a lot more available wing guys that they could be going to. And then also on top of it, Cason Wallace currently 33.5% owned. He shows up a bunch in the Sims. We have him being optimal 40% of the time. If Cason Wallace is out, who's the biggest benefactor from OKC? Is there somebody we're not currently rostering that we would want to be playing in that case?
I guess the biggest benefactor, probably you're getting, just by necessity, more minutes for Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso, I expect to be on the floor a lot, which is one of my favorite things about, I ended up jamming 35.5 under 35.5 PRA for Quinton Grimes yesterday. I was just running minutes last night and just toying with OKC without SGA, without Jalen Williams on the floor. And I was just man, that's going to be a lot of minutes with Alex Caruso potentially guarding one Quinton Grimes. Who else is he going to guard on Philly? That's who Alex Caruso is going to be on one-on-one. And I do think you're probably playing through Aaron Wiggins. I went through some of his college stuff in Maryland. He's not a great assist guy. That was kind of the main thing I looked at when we were in this situation in that Portland game 2 weeks ago, basically, or just almost 2 weeks ago now, that Friday. I am very much behind the idea that Alex Caruso would have to play more. And then Adam Flagler probably walks into, not enough minutes, I don't think, to be viable, but I think he probably is annoying enough where it doesn't make Alex Caruso some priority. I mean, the most minutes we've gotten for Alex Caruso in a game all season, I believe, is 26, unless I am missing something. So I don't think there's 30-minute upside for Alex Caruso, but I think he will definitely be out there a lot more. He's 4,500 with all the main pieces out. I don't think it's a complete wash that he could get to 28. And so there's that. And then Isaiah Joe, I suppose, could end up doing some stuff. Not the best in terms of, he's averages 1.5 assists per game on 20 and change minutes per game. He's not out there creating, but I suppose he could bring the ball up the floor. Kenrich Williams, though, probably ends up being your main assist guy. Jalen Williams with a Y probably ends up being your main assist guy in the backup unit, which is just insane. This guy's assist rate with all of those main pieces off the floor is up there as well. So there's some ways that OKC can get very, very interesting with it. But I think who benefits the most, I guess the answer probably isn't Alex Caruso because of, what I assume to be some kind of a minutes barrier there. I think it's probably Kenrich Williams as well. So he could go from Isaiah Hartenstein and Cason Wallace. Either one of them sits. Kenrich Williams just becomes priority 3,200.
Yeah. So Kenrich Williams, right now, I agree that he's somebody, like you had said, at the top, as far as somebody who his minutes are kind of difficult to nail down, assuming we were to get Hartenstein and Cason Wallace both in. But if those guys are out, he's a very easy play, $3,200, and somebody who would be pretty quickly a top value play on the entire slate. Probably the best guy around the min price that we have on the entire slate in that kind of scenario. Do you have a lean before we move past OKC and look at the FanDuel ownership? Do you have a lean as to whether Cason Wallace and or Isaiah Hartenstein are going to be out?
I think Isaiah Hartenstein probably ends up sitting. I think I'm inclined to think he's probably 65-70% to sit. I think Chet Holmgren's enough that you could just say, Chet, go have a game and go have some fun. And I think he was definitely somebody that I considered nuke of the night, 7,600. But OKC's up 7.5 games in the West. They don't need to win or something like that. It was just a ridiculous number. I think it might've been 12.5 actually last time or something like that. But it's a ridiculous number of games that they're up. And this is the team in the NBA that they would be okay losing to under the circumstances, because well, we own your pick if you don't end up in the top 6. So it is what it is. I think OKC is just happy to win a basketball game no matter what here. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun one, but I'm with you. I think that we've talked through that one about as much as we can. I can't imagine, would you play any Flagler? Like, there's not a world where he ends up starting if Case and Wallace sits, right?
So the last time that OKC was shorthanded, we thought Flagler was potentially going to start, and he was somebody who initially I had exposure to. Then the starting lineup came out. He wasn't starting. He ended up in none of my lineups for that particular day. Considering that they were even more shorthanded, remember how shorthanded they were the last time they sat out. Like, there was no Chet that game either. There was no Chet. Right. And we still, I still didn't get to Flagler in my lineups, and he ended up projecting for like 13 fantasy points for us off the top of my head, and they were even more shorthanded. So my unless he unexpectedly starts, I don't think I'll end up getting to him.
Yeah, it just how I feel about that. I mean, I've been doing this back and forth with Jalen Williams here all day on J with a Y. I was like, oh, I'm going to short him. I'm going to just jam his unders here. And this was like an hour ago. And then just started kind of processing what to go through. Did you know Jalen Williams has props available right now? Like, they're much higher than I expected them to be too, at like 24.5. You would want to jam the under of it. Again, he ended up putting just over 30 PRA, but had the triple-double. The assist rate looks really good. That's the main thing. Just, this is a team that you need to be watching. You have playback after this, correct? You're not going anywhere for the people.
Oh, yeah. We'll be over there.
Hitler and Gay porn stream coming up after this, so don't go anywhere. Just go to playback and go kick it with Greg.
Yeah, let me see what does FanDuel have up right now for Jalen Williams props.
24.5 was the number I saw earlier.
All right. Yeah, I mean, like, he's kind of priced as if Hartenstein's just not going to play. That's where his props are sitting right now.
That's what I thought.
See. We'll see what ends up happening there. And also, if you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up for any of the packages that we have here at Stokastic, it does come with access to our Discord channel. So if you want Sims access to our player projections, ownership, late swap, which is just as important as it could possibly be at this point in the season, go sign up. Links down below in the YouTube description box, or sign up for any of our affiliate partners here on screen. It has to be through the link that we have down below. That is so that the sites that we are sending you to here, that they know that you came from us. So if you sign up at any of these sites, Fanatics, Chalkboard, Sleeper, Bet365, Better, Caesars, DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, Vivid Picks, Underdog Fantasy, 1 free month of Sims access for each one of these sites that you sign up for. So if that's of interest to you, free stuff, deposit bonuses on top of it. Links are down below in the YouTube description box. Now let's get into our Discord and see what questions we have. And I think I saw a super chat that came in as well. But we'll start here with Discord because I saw a few of these piling up. And yeah, Jaw 1224 says, is there a way in the Sims to simultaneously sim out 2 different builds? I want to play 20 max and mini max tonight, but want to work on both builds in separate windows ideally. So you can't do it at the exact same time. What you can do is run a sim, and then after you're done running the sim, run another sim with the other settings that you want, and you could just load those lineups into the entry manager separately. So you could save the lineups from the entry manager, and then for the first build, and then save the ones for the second build and the lineups you want to play in, and that'll accomplish what it is that you are looking to do there. Coach DFS wants to know top FanDuel GPP plays today. Yeah, let's look at the FanDuel side of things and also pull up the ownership here on screen. So the most popular players over on the FanDuel side of things, we have here 44% ownership to Luka, 38% to Jaden Hardy, 37% to Aaron Wiggins. We've got 32% to AJ Johnson, and then just under 30% ownership to Chet Holmgren. Those are your most popular plays over on the FanDuel side of things, Eric. Now, let's go position by position and identify some of the top overall players that we're liking for FanDuel, and or any other sorts of things do you want to shout out about the FanDuel side of things. Do you have lineups for both, or do you want me to just handle it?
Yeah, I'm playing both because I put like $80 of single entry, like one single entry lineup in last week, and I found out I won $700 on it. So I'm just like, well, F it. I'm just going to do it again. So I'm going to make another single entry lineup and just forget about it on FanDuel because I hadn't even pulled it up for a week. Didn't even sweat that lineup. It's like, all right, good times.
So let's do, and we can do this for DraftKings as well. Let's start by doing FanDuel, and then we'll do it DraftKings afterwards. There's probably going to be, some overlap between the two. But starting with FanDuel, our favorite chalk and favorite contrarian options at each position. I'll go first. We'll consider contrarian anybody sub 20% owned. My favorite chalk option on FanDuel, that is going to be Luka Doncic at point guard. And my favorite, actually, let's go sub 15% ownership. It's a bigger slate, so the ownership's a little bit more spread out. If we're looking at a lower owned guy who I like for the FanDuel side of things, I will go with, I'll go with Donovan Mitchell, 14% owned with no Darius Garland tonight. For yourself, Eric, a chalk, and it doesn't have to be crazy contrarian, just we'll say sub 15%.
Okay, Spencer Dinwiddie, point guard, and let's go. Jamal Murray.
Nonsense happening, by the way.
Oh no.
Zach LaVine is out tonight from absolutely nowhere. Zach LaVine is out, which we'll finish this exercise. I just want to bring it to everybody's attention that we do, because if we keep going on with this, then chat just gonna be like, Zach LaVine's out. So just want to let you guys know that we did see it. We'll have projections update in a little bit, and then we'll circle back on that. So we'll finish out FanDuel. I think probably a lot of what we're talking about is going to be defunct, which happens pretty quickly in NBA DFS. Immediate reaction, though, especially with Sabonis already being out. I mean, Monk and DeRozan look considerably better.
Monk and DeRozan. That's my first reaction. I'm not going to think that this is a slate where we have to go out of our way to play Jake LaRavia, but he's been playing more minutes than I think people realize for Sacramento. He's played 31, 27, 21, 16 and against Phoenix blowout, and then 23 last game. He's been playing a lot more, like a lot more. He's 3,300 on DK. I think that's like the sneaky guy, but the obvious ones, you're definitely going to DeMar DeRozan. You're definitely going Malik Monk, even though they're pretty expensive. Keegan Murray, 5,800 is meh. And don't know what to make of a Jonas Valanciunas because he's unplayable at 7,400 against Cleveland, but Trey Lyles at 3,500 sure isn't. So there's some paths there for things. We'll let the data team do their thing.
All right, let's finish up talking about some of the top.
Big LaRavia now listed questionable
now. The next player we say we like from the Kings will just get added to the injury report now.
I'm like trying to give you the sneaky guy at 3,300. I mean, I would have definitely played him in the late slate. Like I would have definitely played Jake LaRavia late slate.
But... All right, I'm gonna guess here. I'm gonna say who gets added to the injury report next for the Kings? DeRozan? Sure, I'll guess him. You want to guess somebody who's gonna get downgraded to questionable for no reason right now?
Let's go. I mean, I can't do on Sacramento. We're running out of bodies. Like we're running out of actual people there.
Wait. Is this true? Somebody in chat said that somebody just, I don't know if this is true. This is unsubstantiated. Somebody in chat said he saw somebody on Twitter say just now that DeRozan did get ruled out. Is that actually true? Did we summon that?
No.
Let me see. Are we being trolled?
No.
Let me see.
I'll cry. I'll actually freak out. I don't need that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, no, it's just somebody trolling us. Us.
I mean, I guess the one benefit of that news, the one benefit of having both of them out is that you would have complete access to Denver. Like you could be able to react to Denver without a care in the world. Like you'd be able to get to something in a lot of your lineups. Whereas right now, I still think it's going to be difficult. Like the path is still somewhat difficult. Like Monk is expensive. Like DeRozan is expensive. They're not free by any means. And luckily it's a good game environment, but overall they're probably going to get the piss pounded out of them, even without Darius Garland out there for Cleveland. And I am probably going to get to some form of something. Like who even plays behind Jake LaRavia? There's like no, like they're running out of people that they actually care about in the world. I guess it's just full steam ahead for Trey Lyles. He could play some minutes at the 4 if need be. He's basically only been a backup 5 though. So whatever, we'll get to it.
Yeah, I'm looking over here because I haven't thought about the pricing of the Kings guys at all today. I'm sure it's been the same for you. This team looked so I didn't realize how expensive these guys are, but DeRozan's still $8,200, Monk $7,800. They're in play, but These aren't going to be like,
yeah, they're FanDuel plays. Look at their tags on FanDuel are a joke. So DeMar DeRozan is going to be awesome on FanDuel, 7,700 for him. That is a substantial difference. Malik Monk, 7,600, about the same, but obviously a little bit cheaper. And you get the FanDuel bump where FanDuel with the floor, it looks a little bit better to get a guy who's around the same price on FanDuel than it is to get them on DK. Keon Ellis, I suppose, 4,900, not going to be that interesting, but we've seen some like out of the middle of nowhere, Keon Ellis wants to shoot the basketball games. Like we've seen some of those. I'm not saying it's completely out of the, 150 set, Keon Ellis, but can't imagine a 4,500 on DK. I'm going to get to much with OKC.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these Kings guys, and they're certainly playable on FanDuel. My first thought when Levine was ruled out was like, oh, I'm just gonna have like Monk and DeRozan everywhere, and that's not really going to be the case now. Looking at the price tags for these guys, we'll see what it looks like when projections update. Getting back to finishing out our most rostered players that we're liking at each position for FanDuel. By the way, starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks.
Jones.
Yeah, we got Kai Jones at center, Dinwiddie, Marshall, Washington, Edwards, Jones. This is so many pieces of news that are happening at once. Honestly, you know what? I'm going to cut off. Coach, appreciate the question. It is all irrelevant right now, though. There's too many things happening that's changing it. So we'll get back to looking at some of our overall favorite plays in a little bit. But I mean, with Kai Jones starting at center and then some of the King stuff switching up, LaRavia being questionable, too much in flux. And I think, honestly, whatever answers we give you guys right now are just going to be inaccurate because things are going to end up changing. But I want to ask you now, Eric, about the Dallas Mavericks starting lineup, in particular, Kai Jones at center. Is he somebody that we're going to want to be playing in DFS now? Kai Jones, $3,900 over on DraftKings. We had him projected for 22.85 fantasy points. Kai Jones over on, that was on FanDuel. Kai Jones over on DraftKings. We have him projected for.
So the major part of this news is the Max Christie piece. So first off, Max Christie was going to be Nuke of the Night. If he started, he's not Nuke of the Night anymore. So Max Christie off the table. The other thing, this makes me a little bit worried about Jaden Hardy minutes. Like, I'm actually worried about Jaden Hardy minutes not having Max Christie starting. They went like opposite small ball. They went big ball. They went to like straight up big ball. We got Dinwiddie, Marshall, Washington, Edwards, Jones. 4 of the 5 players have played center for the Dallas Mavericks in recent weeks. Like, that's where we're actually at. Like, normally you would have Washington listed as the 5. Normally, you would have Edwards at the 5, and Marshall has played some 5. Like, everybody there, except for Dinwiddie, has played center. So my inclination is not just Max Christie being removed from, like, massive consideration. I think you can still consider him. It's a team with 8 guys, but I get a little bit worried about Jaden Hardy minutes because if you were, like, ready to rock with him, why wouldn't you start Max Christie there, have Jones come off the bench, play backup minutes, and then Jaden Hardy, I have to reduce his minutes here because this is just kind of telling me that Max Christie is going to come out and play like the 2 in a backup capacity. And there's not really a chance for him to like reprieve Max Christie at the 2 next to Dinwiddie. Like, my guess is that Dinwiddie, when he's off the floor, you're going to have Jaden Hardy play backup point guard. And you could see only like 15, 16 minutes for him first game back. Like, I think that's way more in play with this lineup than what it was starting to show off, assuming Max Christie was starting at the 2.
Yeah, we've got Jaden Hardy. Our projections are updated. We got Hardy for 24 minutes and 23.5 fantasy points now. So also, he's only projected for 6% ownership now. So it changes the equation a lot. Hardy is still somebody who I assume will show up in a couple of lineups, but I think that now it's reasonable to assume that they're playing a little bit bigger lineups. For all the people who are saying he's not going to play, like, I still think he plays today. He's just, I mean, he's just the guy that exists now. 24 minutes, 23.69 fantasy points, 6% ownership. He's just a player on the slate. If he's in a couple lineups, cool, but he's not a strong option. He's not somebody who can't play either.
Completely changes my tune. Again, this is 40 minutes difference. We started, well, I guess Josh went like 20 minutes over, but whatever. Like however many minutes we've been on this show, we started at, I can't avoid Jaden Hardy. Now I'm avoiding him like the plague. I bet he still pulls some ownership for what it's worth, even like 20 minutes before. I am going to have very little to none because I can't imagine you roll that lineup out against the Pacers unless you just had to. And I feel like the Mavericks just had to, didn't really have a choice. And now Jaden Hardy, I'm assuming like 18, 20 minutes is almost like that's the ballpark. I want to take it down even from like the 23, 24 that we have where he's showing up in just 6%.
And if we look at Sacramento, they are also updated for projections. Also on Kai Jones, because he's $5,200 on DraftKings, he doesn't look great there. $3,900 on FanDuel, totally different equation. Kai Jones looks much, much better over on FanDuel. Sacramento Kings, honestly, these guys really don't look great. Here's what we have for projections now. DeMar DeRozan project for 38 fantasy points. Malik Monk for 37.5. Valanciunas for 33. We have Keon Ellis. He's the guy who makes the most sense now. Keon Ellis now projected for 28 fantasy points at $4,500. Keon Ellis looks substantially better with increased playing time in the absence of Zach LaVine. I don't think anybody else looks all that great from Sacramento, though.
I'm with you. I think FanDuel is where you want to play them if you want to play any of them. Again, Jake LaRavia was going to be like the interesting way off the board piece for me and like the late slate type stuff. Wasn't going to play him on the main by any means, but questionable tag there. Maybe you elevate a little bit of Trey Lyles. Maybe you elevate a little bit of Keon Ellis, but at 4,500, I'm not going to play him on the main slate. I'm just not like, if he has one of those 45, 50 point, he decides to shoot games today, whatever, don't really care. But we've got way better options on the slate than anybody from Sacramento, and tough matchup against Cleveland, even though the game environment itself with the total looks all right.
Next question we have here is from M. Grizzly. He wants to know, are we doing anything to manipulate exposure to prepare for late news, limiting early exposure, boosting anybody? Let me rerun lineups here with the most recent news. At least with what I had before, I had so much exposure to OKC that it was not really problematic to me. Like and I think that no matter what happens, say you want to have a lot of exposure to OKC, as long as you have a lot of exposure to OKC, your lineups are going to kind of be backloaded. Is there any other considerations you're making?
I mean, backloaded till 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. my time. Like it's not backloaded the way that you want it to be, where it's 2 extra hours. And we didn't get that Jokic and Murray news until I'd say it's like 45 minutes before game. Just trying to remember off the top of my head. Do you remember when that news dropped? I felt like it was like 45 minutes before the game started or so.
Yeah, I just think of it as how long we were into the video we were watching on playback at the time. So we were
you got lost in it. You got lost in it.
So we were, what position were they in? And then what was, that's actually, you could tell time that way. People don't know that, but you could watch those videos, be like, oh, they're in this position now. It's like hands on a clock. And then you'd be like, oh, okay, it was 8:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh
I don't remember exactly when they got rolled out.
Okay, that's what it felt like to me. I'm just saying that, like, I'm assuming that we're going to have to play everything from OKC before we get that Denver news. I'm just assuming that's going to be the case. Roll with the punches, friends. It'll be all right.
Do you have a favorite pay up option on the slate? And is that going to inform your lineups in any kind of way where you have your most exposure?
How is it not Jokic? Like, it's Luka's 12-5. I love Luka, but like, we're talking way more ownership coming in on Luka here, and we have unlimited value. Like, we have an insane amount of value with potentially more on the way. And obviously, if Jokic sits, you're kind of left holding the bag there to some extent. But like, if Cason Wallace sits, if Isaiah Hartenstein sits, all of a sudden I have a 4,600 center that I want to play in every single lineup in Jalen Williams. I have some piece of value that shows up even better from OKC. And if I don't backload right from the get-go here and have Jokic in more lineups right before that comes out, like, I just kind of want to be nimble and be able to react to whatever it is. But like, I want more than 10% Jokic, the best fantasy producer this entire season. And Luka's playing without LeBron, which, obviously you could put them in the same category, which is why they're projected, within 3 fantasy points of each other. And we have Luka as the higher projected today, which totally makes sense. But one is 40% owned, one is 10% owned. Like, I think it's pretty clear cut for me that if I had the guy in tournaments and I'm trying to win all the money on any given day, give me a 10% Jokic on a 11 game slate all day.
All right, let's get to some of your guys' super chats and shout out to, an hour feels like a lot of time, but you go do some of these slates and all of a sudden you're like 45 minutes into the show and it feels like it just started. So I want to make sure that we touch on the super chats that are sitting here for you guys. We've got one here from, Chris Williams gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. As always, Chris, thank you very much. We appreciate you for supporting the channel. He also has a shout out. He says, we talked about it last night, but thanks again for the Celtics take. What ended up happening was, so Chris didn't include this in the super chat, but I'll tell the story. He was prepared to play, if I remember correctly, Derek White at captain in Showdown. But what happened? My nuke of the night last night, Kristaps Porzingis. So he goes, I'm going to play Porzingis at captain in Showdown. Came in first in the 15K Celtic Showdown, playing just 2 lineups. Wants to let people know that if you're only playing a few lineups, you can still win. So shout out to Chris. Love to see when you guys end up winning. So big GPP winning for him yesterday, and hopefully another Showdown takedown for him tonight. Then Alex Morris wants to know, what is the Stokastic XXX play of the night? Eric, who's going to fuck you tonight?
Excuse me?
He asked, what is the Stokastic XXX play of the night? Which I take to mean, who is going to fuck you tonight? Who's going to ruin your lineups?
Is this like Sam Rockwell from White Lotus all over again? Do you watch White Lotus at all?
I've never even heard of it.
What?
I've never heard. This is the first time I've heard of it.
You've never heard of the White Lotus, the show on Max, on like the artist formerly known as HBO? Are you kidding me?
I've honestly never heard of it. No clue. I'm not plugged in.
Why are you the way that you are?
I don't know, but we got 13 minutes to go to talk about
no,
the NBA.
Okay, yeah, I got nothing other than like who's gonna F me in the bum. So that's cool. Very important talking point. Probably going to be Luka or Jokic. I got to think Jokic because I'm either going to have him, and if he plays bad, that would suck. But then he could screw me over by being out in general. I'm boosting pretty much everybody on Denver just to get some type of late swap ability. If everybody ends up in, I have enough lineups where it's solely Jokic that I'm okay with it. I'm just trying to run one more thing in the Sims and then be able to sort it out. But I saved a couple of lineups already. That's the one thing. Have another tab where you just are able to like save some lineups on the side that you already like that have isolated. Like I just isolated one from Denver and I just starred my highest ROI guys on the Jokic side. And I'm ready to rock with those lineups. And obviously I'll be swapping later. But as it stands right now, going into the OKC news, we're still waiting on like, I mean, Jokic is definitely the guy who's going to screw me over no matter what.
Final call also, guys, for the dance promo, because we are going to have this promo ending tonight. So if you want to sign up one more time for Portfolio V, link down below in the YouTube description box, use that promo code DANCE, all capital letters, get yourself 68% off when you're walking in the door there. So I've got what should be my final run of Sims going here for pre-lock, and then things could certainly be changing, or almost certainly will end up changing post-lock when Josh and I are over on the playback show. So you guys are going to want to check that out. Next super chat, it is from Malukar. It says, thanks for 4 years of great DFS content and laughs. Malukar, thank you for being a regular supporter of the channel. Del Toro has followed up and is asking us the same question that we got from Coach before. So now that the dust has settled a little bit more and we've got some updates from everything, our top FanDuel GPP plays by position, starting at point guard, Eric. Now, things may have changed a little bit from before. Who's the point guard that you plan on having the most exposure to today for FanDuel purposes? Or if you were playing a bunch of FanDuel lineups, who would you like the most?
Yeah, I'm playing one lineup, and I like Spencer Dinwiddie the most at point guard.
Okay. So to me, Cason Wallace, his ownership is now sub 20% over on FanDuel. Worst case scenario, he doesn't end up playing today. Cool. You know what you do? You just run stuff through the late swap machine. You change out your lineups. But I mean, if Cason Wallace is actually going to be sub 20% owned with all those guys out from OKC, he looks pretty damn good to me over on the FanDuel side of things. At shooting guard, what stands out to you the most at shooting guard, Eric?
I love the idea of getting, I mean, this is kind of your guy that I'm, we haven't talked about their situation whatsoever on the other side of that Memphis game, but I think Desmond Bane's one of my favorite contrarian plays on the slate.
Ooh, okay. All right. Desmond Bane, I don't have any issue with that. Don't have any issue with that at all. For me at at shooting guard, I'm going to go with Isaiah Joe, who another guy already looks really good. Ownership at 22%, possibility for it to look even better if guys get ruled out for OKC. So lots of guys looking good from the Thunder. At small forward, what do you have for us at the small forward spot?
DeMar DeRozan, Aaron Wiggins. It's so hard to get away from that combination.
Yeah, I'm going to go. Boy, I'm just only going to be answering OKC guys here, apparently.
Fine.
Aaron Wiggins, super popular over on FanDuel, but once again, I view it as pretty unavoidable. What do you have for us at power forward?
Kessler Edwards.
He does look really good in our data. We've got him with, it looks like the biggest difference between their optimal score and their ownership, which, Kessler Edwards looks really, really good. So if I'm going to add somebody a little bit different than Kessler Edwards, I'm going to go with, it was actually somebody who's really interesting, modestly owned, Alex Sarr. I couldn't believe how high his props were this morning. I was looking at some of the lines and, I know there was guys on the injury report for Washington, but like his opening PRA was like 31.5. Like that's like, he's being priced at the sports books like an actual real player. He's low-key been playing really well as of late. I don't know that people are taking notice of how much he's improved as the season's gone on. I kind of like watching him play as well. I hope he becomes a player in the league, like an actual really good one. He's got all of the talent and abilities improving as the season goes. Good matchup against another tanking team in Utah. So contrarian play for me and Alex Sarr. And then finally at center, I'm surprised Kai Jones didn't end up being super popular at $3,900. So that's going to be the guy for me at 16% ownership.
I do think he's all right. My favorite by far, though, the guy I'm rolling out in single entry, Jalen Williams.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Also, already somebody who looks good. Potential to look great if we end up getting Hartenstein ruled out later on in the day. Freudian Slip wants to know how exotic is Giddey tonight. Eric, Josh Giddey, somebody who's landing in your lineups?
He is a pedophile exotic, so we don't deal with that.
Are you playing him in DFS?
No, I am not.
Let's see. So for me, Josh Giddey, there's a ceiling there. He's so expensive now. He's now $8,400 on a slate that is this much value to it. Like I would rather go and just like he's only marginally cheaper than Devin Booker. There's other guys I prefer to pay up for than Josh Giddey. Like he's a legitimate pay up option now at his kind of price tag. So no thanks, not somebody I'm really all that interested in. Next questions that we have from Discord, Champino. Favorite contrarian and chalk plays for each position on DraftKings. Yeah, I've got DraftKings, my final sim running. It'll be done like 30 seconds. So I'll answer one other question and go back to that. COVID Bryant II wants to know if we were playing 20 lineups, would Hardy be in any of them? Either 0 or 1 at most for 20 lineups for me with Jaden Hardy.
I would just play him in 0. I'm with you.
Yeah, so I've got all my lineups updated now. I have Hardy. You know what? I'm running some Hardy lineups out there. Yeah, I'd say take some chances on him, but not somebody who's like a massively important play for me or anything like that. Let's look now at the other question we have from Champino, who wants to know our favorite DraftKings plays at each position. So let's touch on that, Eric. Beginning at point guard, who do you like the most for DraftKings at the point guard spot?
All right, I just kicked off one last run, so this is my run that I just put in, but it doesn't have everything I wanted right with Jalen with a Y Williams in it, but point guard is Luka Doncic by a lot.
Yeah, especially considering the amount of value we have on the slate and then the possibility, too, that we're not going to have Jokic out there. Like, it's really hard for me to not have a lot of lineups that are going to be allocated to Luka for today. So I agree with you. Point guard, that is going to be Luka. How about a shooting guard?
Shooting guard's interesting because there's lots of ways to go. Aaron Wiggins is obviously the chalk. You could say him at shooting guard or small forward. Keon Ellis looks a lot better in our data than what I expected him to. He was definitely somebody that I think I was already interested in like a contrarian way. But I guess he's not going to be that contrarian, but I mean, I guess our data just really likes him. He looks really good, really good.
Let's see. So for me at shooting guard, I'll go Dinwiddie at shooting guard. I'll go Dinwiddie as my. There's a lot of guys that I think look really good at the shooting guard spot. Small forward, I'm going to be playing a shit ton of Aaron Wiggins and could potentially even be more. Aaron Wiggins is my most rostered player right now, and potentially be more if you see like Hartenstein, Case, and Wallace out.
I'm with you. Small forward for me, Aaron Wiggins by a landslide.
All right. At power forward, Aaron Wiggins also has power forward eligibility. Outside of him, we've got guys like Kenrich Williams, who already looks really good as a punt option, potential to look even better as more guys get ruled out. What do you like at the power forward spot?
Kenrich Williams just looks incredible, and I'm rolling out this lineup set with Jalen with a Y Williams and a lot of Kenrich, and it's just going to be an ungodly amount of both.
Trying to look at the power forward spot, which I do think is 4% ownership. That's pretty interesting to me, considering how shorthanded Dallas is going to be. And like you mentioned before, them playing bigger lineup today kind of indicates they're going to lean on the bigs a little bit more, which makes sense. They have 8 active guys. 4 of them are centers, or at least should be playing center. So I like Kessler Edwards at really low ownership.
Yeah, he's way too low owned, I think. I liked him on FanDuel a ton, but not playing enough lineups for it to matter as much there.
Now, how about center? What are you liking for center over on DK?
Jalen Williams by a mile. I think he's the best tournament play other than Jokic at the center position. Both of them just look incredible.
So are you going to be playing a lot of him even if Hartenstein is in?
I'm going to take some shots on him. If Hartenstein ends up in, I'll figure it out and renegotiate. Shouldn't be that hard with how much OKC we have.
Yeah. Totally agree with that as well. No matter who you play from, first off, you have to be playing some guys from OKC. There's no way around it. We have these spots that pop up all the time at this point in the season. People always ask, can I get away from these guys? The answer is you can get away from individual players, not the team on the whole, though. So OKC, you should be having exposure to OKC. And then whether it ends up being, Jalen Williams starting or, whoever, Cason Wallace, whether he's in or out, as long as you have exposure, it's going to be easy enough to make swaps and really prioritize whoever looks the best after we get that actual news. Also wanted to give an update on one other guy who ended up being well overweight to the field too, because he didn't come in that popular over on DraftKings. Keon Ellis, 14% owned. I thought he was going to end up being more popular. He's somebody I'm way overweight to the field too.
You and I just had, did you hear me talk about him? Did you hear me talk about him at all?
Yeah, but I hadn't run lineups. I didn't know what it was I was going to have. And now that I have it updated, he's the guy I'm most overweight to.
Yeah, I love him. And again, I'm glad our data liked him because he was somebody that I was definitely contemplating. I didn't run anything on my own to kind of figure out where he'd be, and I didn't know where he would stack up. But if Jake LaRavia ends up out too, it's going to just help him even more.
Absolutely. All right. Was there any other questions? No more super chats. So we've got 2 questions really quick from Discord. Kareem wants to know nuke. Yeah, here is the issue with the nuke of the night. I was prepared to line it up before, and then we just had projections, updates, players getting ruled out, super chats and whatnot to answer. So really quick, Eric, who is your nuke of the night? It's Keon Ellis for me.
Yeah, Jaden Hardy will have a minutes limit. Jaden Hardy will have a minutes limit. I mean, we don't know what that is. Jason Kidd's also a damn dirty liar, but just knowing that he has one makes me feel like we kind of talked through that entire situation correctly. Nuke of the night, Nikola Jokic.
Keon Ellis for me. By the way, I think Hardy probably plays like mid to low 20s minutes, something like that. You know who this benefits now? Dinwiddie is probably going to have to play a shit ton.
I just boosted him. I literally just clicked boost on him as you were talking.
Yeah, Dinwiddie's going to have to play a ton. And then finally, M. Grizzly wants to know thoughts on AJ Johnson. Yeah, as far as sub 4K players go, he is the guard I have the most of under 4K. How about for you, AJ Johnson?
Yeah, I've got too much of him, but I'll deal with it later.
Yeah, I mean, he's somebody in AJ Johnson is just kind of unavoidable for me on this slate when you consider what his price point is and the guys who are out for, or at least not going to be playing big minutes. I also think we're going to start to see them really ramp down their older players at this point in the season. I'm doing the same thing as you, by the way, just giving a boost to Dinwiddie so that I could get one final set of lineups in with a little bit more of him.
And we're at lock.
All right. That's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Take advantage of that dance promo going to be ending tonight. In the interim, Josh and I over on Playback, reacting to all the late news, whatever ends up happening with OKC, whatever ends up happening with weird starting lineups, other shit that goes down here post-lock. Here's what we're still waiting on. Nikola Jokic, questionable. He matters. Jamal Murray is questionable. Isaiah Hartenstein's questionable. Cason Wallace is questionable. Christian Brown is questionable. Tumani Kamara is questionable. Jake LaRavia is questionable. That kind of matters now. Join Josh and I over in Playback. I'll post the link right now in the YouTube chat so you guys know where to find us. And
be careful clicking it. Be careful clicking it. You never know. NSFW.
There we go.
We're starting for Miami. These guys, these silly sallies.
Join us over on Playback, guys. Good luck.